A new look, a new breakthrough and new evidence to reveal.
And new appeals to test your memory among the crimes tonight.
The two robbers described as the most wanted men in Britain.
They are desperate men, they've nothing to lose, and we strongly suspect that they're about to leave the country.
The gunman who held up women and children.
Come on, I will have done any heroes tonight. I want all of your money.
And a tragic phone call from a little boy.
My mummy's dead, someone's killed her and the door's knocked down.
All these crimes we hope you can solve tonight.
Do any of your children have a friend who's gone missing or that you just haven't seen for a while? Or do you remember a child who used to play down the road who now appears to have vanished? Last Friday, police discovered the body of a little Afro-Caribbean boy in the River Thames. David, what do you know about this boy? I mean, there's been quite a bit in the papers about it.
As many viewers will already know, Fiona, all we have recovered at the moment is the torso of this little boy. His head and his limbs have been deliberately severed.
What kind of age was he? What more information have you been able to find out?
We estimate his age to be about 5.5. Could be a year either side, so 4 to 7 maximum. He was a black boy, little Afro-Caribbean boy. We anticipate his age to have been about 3 feet 10 inches in life. That could be a few inches either side. He had been circumcised. He was very well nourished. We don't know anything else about him.
That's about it. Now, one thing that might be a clue is these orange shorts. Now, these are exactly the same as the shorts he was wearing. There are plenty of shorts like this, but the key thing is the label, which is Kids and Company. Now, what do you know about these shorts?
Our information is that those shorts were manufactured for Woolworths in Germany and distributed in Woolworths in Germany, and with that label and that size, 116, only 820 pairs have been sold.
Okay, so any information about those, obviously you want to hear about that. Now, as far as you can tell, he died from a trauma to the neck. He was found in the river by Tower Bridge. Have you any idea how long he was in the water or where he might have been dumped in the water?
We estimate the time in the water to be between 1 and 10 days. The point at which he was deposited in the Thames, it's almost impossible to say because of tides and currents which are affected by wind and weather conditions. At the moment our search is concentrated between the Barrier and Westminster.
And briefly, David, there's a link to the Netherlands, isn't there? There's a similar case in the Netherlands.
I must stress that the investigations are not linked at this moment. There are similarities with another case in the Netherlands. Another child, in that case female, same age group, not the same racial background, but found in water. Again, the head and limbs have been severed.
Now, surprisingly, it surprised me anyway, we get a lot of people watching Crimewatch in the Netherlands, so if you know anything, you can give us a call. And the fact is, little children don't just go missing. Someone must know something. Maybe a teacher, maybe a friend. As I said at the beginning, maybe you've noticed that a child who you used to see around has gone missing. Or the parents, someone must know. Or must be worried about the disappearance of this little boy. Call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600, or the incident room, that's 020 8853 1212.
The phrase most wanted has become a cliche, hugely overused, but in this case it really is true. Two armed robbers who pose a serious danger to the public. Their names are Richard Dalton and Michael Lydon.
They are desperate men, they've nothing to lose, and we strongly suspect that they're about to leave the country.
They're currently wanted by 4 forces across the north of England.
People have been woken up in their beds by masked men in dark clothing, shining torches into their faces, pushing the barrel of a gun onto the forehead. It's not something that you can easily forget.
They were caught once and went to trial, but were given bail, and having heard the evidence against them, went on the run.
I was very well aware that the likelihood was they were going to re-offend. They weren't going to be easy to catch. So to say I was disappointed is an understatement.
The trial went ahead without them. They were convicted in their absence and sentenced to 18 and 15 years. But since then, a string of armed robberies across 3 forces bears many of their hallmarks.
It's as desperate as it gets. The worst scenario is that a member of the public gets shot. We want to prevent that at all costs. It's imperative that we trace and arrest these men as soon as possible.
Ian, do you really think that they will use the guns?
I believe they will. because 22 men and women have already had to look down the barrel of their guns during the offences for which they've been convicted. We actually believe they're active, and we really do fear that at one time in the future someone's going to get needlessly shot.
Of course, it's not academic whether they get sentenced. They know they're facing very, very long prison terms. They might feel they've got nothing much to lose at this point.
I'm sure they will. They're desperate men and they're on the run, and that's entirely why we need a call tonight. We must get them back into custody quickly.
I saw, one or two people quoted in the local papers. They'd almost described them as they were sort of quasi-heroes. They're brave young men.
That's right. They've been described as latter-day Robin Hoods, and they're certainly not that. They're just desperate, violent men.
Causing desperate problems for other people. And, of course, if they are that violent, which they are, anybody who knows where they are might be a bit frightened about calling in.
I can understand that, and of course whilst we're asking them to ring Crimewatch tonight or the incident room in Hull, there is another way, and they can ring Crime Stoppers tomorrow on 0800 555 111. They have a tried and tested procedure for dealing with anonymity, and there is a reward in this case, and people can still claim a reward whilst remaining anonymous.
Let me point out, if you call Crimewatch 0500 600 600, no calls here are traced, and of course you can retain your anonymity here too, because there's no evidence required in this case. All we need to do is find out where they are. They go straight to prison, so all that you need is an address. Are you going to catch them in the end?
We are going to catch them. The key is I want to catch them sooner rather than later. What I want to do is avoid a needless tragedy, so we need that call tonight. Where are they?
OK, ports and airports are on the alert for them. But don't hesitate to call us. 0500 600 600, or that search headquarters on 01 482 856 556, or as Ian pointed out, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously. That's a free phone number, 0800 555 111.
One of the most distressing calls taken by a 999 operator. It was made by a little boy 3 months ago from his home near Stansted in Essex. In the night, something terrible had happened.
Hello, can I have the place? 16 Gilby Cottages. Gilby Cottages. It's Elsenham. My mummy's dead. Someone's killed her and the door's knocked down. It's my mum. Please send the police.
Julie Foster had been beaten to death as she slept. It seems that murder was the only motive.
She was such an outgoing, she was a people's person. She just loved life. She worked so hard, and all for her boys. She absolutely idolised her boys.
Julie was separated, and one of her sons lived with his father, but she saw him regularly as she built a new life. Did Julie tell anyone she was worried, either at home or perhaps in Wolverhampton, where she came from, in which she visited just before she died? Did you meet her then in the Crooked House, or Chicago's nightclub?
Oh, she was very, very happy, on top of the world. Her father had been down to do a few jobs for her. She just had a few alterations at home. She was really, really happy.
Elsewhere in your horoscope,
Julie made 2 phone calls to an astrology line soon after 1 a.m. But it didn't predict anything unusual, and it seems that she then went to sleep.
She liked looking at her horoscope, and she believed in it as well. She used to say, "Ooh, that's come true," and "Ooh, that's come true," you know, but I used to love it.
There are several things you can maybe help with, mostly by elimination. First, a man who was seen several times in Elsenham the week before the murder, casually dressed and always on the phone. Then a red transit, either on Monday the 9th or Tuesday the 10th of July, on the Stansted Road where Julie lived at 3 a.m. At one stage it stopped and blocked the road. Was that you? And third, a man clutching a plastic bag running towards the railway station at 6 a.m, 3 hours before Julie's son found her in her room.
Somebody can't do this and get away with it. I mean, her boys, they've lost their mother.
Ian, before we get into the facts of this case, what about the little boy? How's he coping with all this?
It's really difficult to describe how an 8-year-old can deal with such a horrific scene, the scene that he must have found that morning. All I know is he's been through an incredible ordeal. He's been down, he's been up, but he's working through it, but it's clearly devastated his whole family.
Yeah, absolutely, must have. And in terms of the motive for the murder, I mean, there was no robbery, there's no sexual assault. It appears to have been personal.
Fiona, this was no random killing. It's my view that this was a cold, calculated, sustained attack, and the person that perpetrated this horrendous crime intended to kill Julie Foster.
Because he may well have known her, in fact. I know you've talked to a lot of people in Essex, but you also want to hear from people in Wolverhampton.
That's right. We've heard a lot of people in Essex that she was a popular person, but she came from the Wolverhampton area. She went to school there, and she used to return regularly to socialise with friends and family who still live in the Wolverhampton area. We know that on the weekend before her death, that's the 6th, 7th and 8th of July, that she'd returned to Wolverhampton and was socialising in the areas that you've seen. So we would ask anybody from Wolverhampton who saw her that weekend or spoke to her to ring in tonight.
And it may be possible that the murderer has spoken to people, or his behaviour may have changed. I mean, just imagine if his girlfriend, say he's got a girlfriend, if his girlfriend is watching this tonight and realises what he could have been up to. I wouldn't want to be that person's girlfriend. I mean, it may be that someone is holding something back out of a misplaced sense of loyalty, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. I would ask anybody just to search their consciences for the absolute devastation this has caused. Is that person that you're with, that loved one, that partner, have they changed since the 10th of July? Is there something different? Please, just search and ring in tonight.
Just anything that occurs to you.
Absolutely.
Look, it was July the 10th. It was in the small hours. Look in your diary. Remind yourself, what were you doing that day? You may remember something that could be useful to the police. Call 0500 600 600 or 01279 64 1188.
On that call, as so many, it's just one good call may solve it. And here is a good example. 10 years ago, we appealed about a rape in Merseyside. The appeal got nowhere, but suspicions grew that the offender was a serial attacker, and in 1998 a new detective took up the pursuit. Last September, Crimewatch was presented with new clues and launched a new appeal. By now there were up to 30 sex offences which may have been the same man around Whiston, Prescott and Rain Hill.
I couldn't go out on my own. I couldn't stand anyone standing behind me. Fear of males. I just basically lost all my confidence, my respect and my freedom.
A lot of people with information take a little time sometimes to decide whether to make that call. The call that really mattered did not actually come in on the night, but was a direct result of the programme and gave us the name of Patrick Campbell.
Patrick Campbell was a prolific burglar with a string of convictions.
He fitted the e-fits that were put forward. His description fitted the description given by the victims and other witnesses. I put him very high on our priority list.
Patrick Campbell knew all about the Crimewatch appeal and headed from Merseyside to the south coast.
I'm a firm believer in fate. Patrick Campbell has had more than his fair share of luck. I'm just glad to say that eventually we had our bit of luck on the way he was captured.
Police received a call from the captain of a ferry in Plymouth. A passenger had been trying to avoid being seen by going into a prohibited area, but he'd been spotted.
It was within half an hour of sailing. You know, would we have seen him again? I don't think so.
Patrick Campbell's DNA was a perfect match to the offenders.
It was just after Christmas. Paul come round and told me that they'd caught him, and it was just the most amazing thing, because it had been 10 years and I never expected that he'd ever get caught.
I wanted him to admit these offences to reduce the likelihood of the victims having to go to court and stand in a box and go through the ordeal again. Modern policing today places a heavy, great emphasis on things like performance indicators and statistics and budgets. None of these will ever measure the agony and pain that these victims have been through. Policemen are individuals, and they do care and they do understand, and most of us do have children ourselves, so we do feel it.
I missed out on my 18th birthday, my 21st birthday. I didn't celebrate them or anything. I lost 10 years. But I'm back on track now.
Patrick Campbell was sentenced to life imprisonment for his appalling treatment of so many women.
Every day, millions of us pass security cameras, and mostly we don't give them a second thought. But here are some people with something to hide.
These next 3 clips all show expensive equipment being stolen from businesses across the country. What we need are names to add to the faces.
Oh, 0500 600 600 if you know any of them. In that last one, the men only got a bottle of aftershave, but while escaping, they attacked an off-duty police officer. This next pair used serious violence against a cashier at a garage in Penge in South London. And have a listen, it's a bit muffled, but you can hear how intimidating they are. They both had knives, and the cashier was so frightened that he had difficulty opening the till. Now, they look like they're both in their mid-20s.
Instead of knives, these burglars took along a baby. Is it theirs or even yours? Are these your babysitters by any chance? This was 3 months ago. They spent over an hour trying to break into the house and bizarrely stopping to feed the baby. Give us a name, 0500 600, for all these cases.
These next robbers just didn't care who they hurt. They barged into a McDonald's, brandishing a handgun and a sawn-off shotgun. It was the summer holidays and the place was full of families and children. McDonald's on the M42 service station at junction 11 near Ashby de la Zouche. Late breakfast time on Monday the 20th of August, and the place was filled with holidaymakers.
Look, doesn't it? It's us to do that. Hey, look! They're being robbed! Oh, you're joking. No!
Right, come on, get back! Come on, over there, we don't want any heroes tonight!
Give me the money! Give me the money! Please! Come on, just give me all the money!
Come on, over there!
Come on! All of the money! Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, that's the way we do it.
Yeah, McDonald's at the services on the motorway. Tell them it's a white Volvo. It's mine, come on! All right.
Come on, go!
Yeah. Listen, I'll keep talking to you. All right. Yeah, well, we're following them at the moment. No, they've just gone to No Man's Heath. No Man's Heath. No, they've come out of the services. They're on an A road. It looked like one bloke had a gun. I think. Did they? Yeah, a couple of them. Maybe two. Yeah. Two of them. Yeah, one definitely had a sawn-off shotgun. No, as I say, they don't know we're here. No, we're back off. Okay. They've said back off.
As they fell back, they lost the Volvo on a B road heading towards Seckington. But the gunmen continued to draw attention to themselves. The Volvo, which had been stolen from Warwick in June, was abandoned in a field and turned into a beacon.
What are they doing?
Certainly in a hurry,
What?
whatever they are.
GVX something, what, on the car? Can you write it down?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got, what's it, GVX?
GVX. So I don't know if they're coming down this way. They've got to come this way. They were facing this way.
But they didn't, which meant they must have done a U-turn and headed towards Tamworth. Well, Malcolm, I guess anyone who was at that McDonald's is not going to have forgotten about this, but there are still some people who haven't come forward, aren't there?
That's right. There are a number of people that we would wish to trace, particularly at McDonald's and also to an adjacent petrol station, which is a total petrol station next to McDonald's. So we're appealing for anybody that hasn't actually spoken to us so far to contact us.
So I suppose people at the garage may have seen these two robbers loitering in their car beforehand or driving off afterwards.
Absolutely. The car we know was in the vicinity of the petrol station, and obviously it is a very busy petrol station, and there were a number of people filling up with petrol, for example, at the time.
And the registration plate, we saw them trying to put it on their car and they're not managing.
That's right, yes. That's rather confusing. I'm not quite sure why that happened, but it was on a false plate, which was M929 UFC. One thing about that is that obviously that number plate has been made up at some outlet somewhere, so we are appealing again for anybody who remembers possibly making up that number plate to again contact us.
Which they could have done quite unwittingly. I mean, we're not suggesting that they would be involved in this, it's just that they have been approached, they may have been approached and asked to put that together.
Anyone can go into an outlet and have a number plate made up.
Now, there's a similar case that you could be linking this to.
Yes, there's a very, very similar incident to a McDonald's which occurred at Willenhall in Warwickshire. I believe that's near Wolverhampton, and that occurred in February of this year. Very, very similar set of circumstances.
So it was a handgun, a sawn-off shotgun.
Again, two men.
Two men.
Absolutely, very, very similar descriptions. Sawn-off shotgun, a handgun. Again, a stolen car was involved in their incident and was later found abandoned and burnt out.
OK, well, there's a reward of up to £5,000. Just think, what would the gunman have done if a child had got in the way? It just doesn't bear thinking about. Call 0116 222 2222.
A Saturday, 2 weeks ago, a crowded number 36 bus in London travelling from Queen's Park to Lewisham, and 5 young men got on at the junction of Rochester Row and Vauxhall Bridge Road. One found that biscuits were left on the only empty seat and he started throwing them around. What followed was pandemonium. A passenger, Ken, who was on the top deck, takes up the story.
It seemed like he was either on something or he just wasn't all there. Some of the biscuits touched me. I then said to him politely, why don't you just brush the biscuits on the floor, I'll give you a hand. And then he became really aggressive, started swearing at me.
At Vauxhall Bridge, the gang got off, and the whole bus applauded Ken's courage for intervening. But seconds later, they returned and went back upstairs to attack him. They laid into him, but he fought back and pushed them down the stairs, and they fell out onto the street.
We landed outside on the floor. Luckily, I landed on top of 2 of them. Then I felt the first guy behind me, on my sort of like on my back, and he had both of his fingers in my eyes, like feeling around. He was pushing into my right eye. I didn't feel anything. Maybe it was the adrenaline, I don't know, and I didn't realise my eye had been pulled out.
Were you on the number 36 bus on Saturday the 15th of September? You'd surely remember the journey. One of the gang spat in a woman's face. Were you that woman? The 5 caused a terrible injury, and they're likely to do so again.
If I would have just taken a beating, then I probably wouldn't have lost my eye. It's the fact that I protected myself, and it frustrated them, and they did what they done.
Steve, what they did to him doesn't bear thinking about, but he got bad news again today.
He did. He's got damage to his left eye now, which may be permanent.
He's amazingly strong, I know, but I mean, what's a thing for somebody to do? Now, everybody on that bus knew what was going on, horrified people. I mean, just tell us what the atmosphere was like.
The bus was full. There was over 50 people on there. There were the bottles being thrown at Ken at the end of the assault where he was being attacked. There was a baby there being protected by other members of the public. Children were screaming, women were crying. It was absolutely pandemonium.
Most of those people, certainly a lot of them, you know who they are, but of course the others, you need to trace everybody who was on that bus, and I think at 2025 you still need to find.
We do. We want everyone to come forward. Everyone on that bus would have heard or seen something. We ask that they come forward to help Ken and to stop this happening again.
Now, supposing someone says to themselves, they're watching this, they say, look, I really don't want to get involved.
Well, I'd ask them that we can offer them every support, but it is such an important issue, and Ken has stepped forward to try and help out, and this is what's happened to him. I ask that they come forward and we will help as best we can.
If you were on that 36 bus, please just give us a call. If you know anyone who was there, if you know anyone who saw anything, if you know anyone who knows anything, make sure they call us, please. Here in the studio or on 020 8649 2484.
Now let me just remind you about the murder of Julie Foster. If you remember, that was the woman who was battered to death, and it was her little boy who found, an 8-year-old boy who had to ring 999. What was going through his mind when he made that call? I can't even imagine. We've had a number of calls on that, not too many, but it's early days yet. We haven't been on air that long. We've had 2 names given already, one of a prisoner. Someone's rung in with some information that could lead to the murder, some very useful information. And then someone who's got some information about the red transit van. If you remember, that's something we wanted to eliminate. There was a red transit van driving past. That's all we've got so far. As I say, it's early days. If you know anything, if only for her little boy's sake, you must ring in.
Sorry, Fiona. We've got so many calls now. I've counted almost 30. That's just here in the studio about Little Boy in the Thames. But let me tell you about Richard Dalton and Michael Lydon. They were the guys who've already been convicted, already been sentenced to huge terms for armed robberies. We think they're committing another string of robberies. We've had a huge response on that. Those two are going to be moving sticks, upping sticks and moving tonight, that's for sure. Most of the calls are still coming from the South Yorkshire area, but we've got another couple of interesting leads, and we've got 2 calls, including this one. Somebody who's pretty sure they know somebody is going to be calling back later on tonight with some details. Coming up, find out what happened after our last Crime Watch, including the barber in Southampton who had acid thrown in his face.
And the handbag snatch where the thieves rammed their victim with a car. What follows next happened 5 weeks ago in Ravenscourt Park in West London. The man may be suffering from a mental illness. He apparently hears voices. Or was the whole thing just an act?
Do you know this man? He's in his 40s. He has a soft Irish accent, a shambling walk, a reddish moustache, and dark brown hair clipped short on top but wispy at the back. On a Friday night in mid-August, he accosted at least 2 women at Ravenscourt Park tube station. Both shook him off, but we need to hear from them tonight because of what happened to someone else.
I got the train back from New Malden. I'd gone to a friend's house for just a takeaway and to watch some videos. I left early and I was walking up the road to my house, and about halfway up I could hear footsteps. We've been told at school that if you ever thought that you were likely to be attacked, that you could use your keys as a weapon if you put them through your hand.
I just want you to know that I'm not going to hurt you.
Strangely enough, thought that maybe he meant well. As he kept reassuring me, I did think, please go away, you know. But still, you think, you know, a minute from home, what's going to happen?
We seem to be going the same way.
I don't think so. The next thing I knew, he had his hands around my neck, or his arm around my neck, and he'd put something really sharp to my throat.
He marched her back across Paddenswick Road, and passers-by may have seen him holding her against the wall outside the park. Then he bundled her inside.
He'd 1 minute be, you know, whispering all the threats under the sun and making obscene comments, and the next he'd be telling me about his dead mother.
I was raped when I was at school, you know. That's why I'm doing this. Look, I'm protecting you.
In a 3-hour ordeal, she was raped twice, after which he took her hand and led her into King Street in Hammersmith. It's now 2 a.m. She had only one shoe, and you may recall her hobbling.
I didn't want to run because I was afraid that if I ran, you know, maybe he would grab me again.
Eventually, she saw her chance and ran into a shop. He casually walked away.
It's just too much to think that I'm sharing the city with him, and one day I'll see him again and I won't be able to do anything.
Howard, the rapist, he's got a pretty distinctive appearance, hasn't he? So you think someone is going to recognise him?
He has, yes. He's got a very short hair on top with wispy bits at the back.
So like a mullet?
Yes, yeah, in fact it's often called a mullet. He's got a reddish moustache. He walks with an ambling gait. He's about 40 years old and he's of medium build.
And he's got a Southern Irish accent.
He has, yes.
And he was wearing a jacket very similar to this one. Let me just open it up, this grey jacket. So here is a grey jacket with the blue stripes, and then it's got this very distinctive blue triangle on the back. So someone may recognise...
That's correct, yes.
...this particular jacket. Now, he approached some other women as well, didn't he, at the tube station?
He did. He was outside the tube station, or in the tube station, for about half an hour before he actually approached the victim. And he approached in that time several other females, and it's essential that we speak to these women in order that we can ascertain what he actually said to them and his approach.
There's a lot of pointers, aren't there, in his behaviour towards mental illness. The fact that he claimed to be hearing voices, he claimed to be seeing people in the park when there wasn't anyone there.
That's correct, yes. He did indicate to the victim that there were other people in the park when, in fact, there was no one there at all.
Now, it is just possible it could be an act. Or, I suppose, that he does have a mental illness, but it doesn't necessarily exhibit itself all the time. Some of the time he may be normal, maybe your next-door neighbour may appear perfectly normal, but in fact is suffering from a mental illness.
There is a possibility that this whole thing was a smokescreen. On the other hand, it could be that the illness just manifests itself occasionally.
If he does have a mental illness, there may be GPs, psychiatrists, that kind of person who could be treating him.
Exactly. It could be the case that he is actually receiving treatment at the moment for a mental health problem, or indeed has in the past.
OK, and let's make it clear, although he had a shambling gait and a rather kind of dishevelled appearance, he's not a down and out as far as you can tell.
Not at all. He was reasonably well dressed, and his appearance was such that he wasn't living out rough or anything of that nature.
OK, well, as we said there, he may have a mental illness. If you're a health professional and you think you might know something, maybe you're treating him, you treated him in the past. We've checked with the British Medical Association, and according to their guidelines, for an offence, a serious offence like rape, giving information is not only justifiable, it is actually desirable. So if you know anything, call us on 0500 600 600 or the incident room on 020 8246 2430.
Now, we always try to tell you what results from Crimewatch calls, of course, and since our last programme there have been half a dozen arrests. But what happens when there aren't arrests? Here's a quick review of some of our recent cases where victims and detectives are still waiting for a breakthrough, a name, a new clue or a new piece of evidence that maybe you can help with now.
Move over! Move! What? Move!
A lorry in South London hijacked with a load of cigarettes and phone cards.
I was really just trying to concentrate on what they were saying, where they were going. They used two names. The driver was spoken to as Yosh, and the passenger, he was called Jerry.
We've had a strong lead regarding the planning and execution of this offence. We've had a number of suggestions regarding the identity of Yosh, and a lot of information about people selling cigarettes and phone cards from unauthorised outlets.
If you've heard who did this, there's a reward. Colin Beer had had a fair bit to drink and was weaving in and out of traffic. He hit a wing mirror and the driver ran back to confront him. Colin later died. Two names given to Crimewatch seem to match in lots of detail, but they've both been eliminated. If you've suspicions, let us know. Becky Hall, the mother of a 4-month-old baby, was found murdered in Bradford.
Becky was a prostitute, and we know she was heading for the red light area, the Thornton Road area of the city. We will not prosecute prostitutes or the users of prostitutes who are ringing in with information about this murder.
There were 3 or 4 calls on background information of Rebecca, which was very good because it was people who hadn't previously come forward to us and appeared to know her quite well.
But Becky's killer is still out there. Call if there's anything you know. Andre Aylward was murdered in a car chase shooting in South London, either out of madness or mistaken identity. At first, the response looked good. We have had some spectacular calls tonight, not least on the shooting in Streatham in South London, resulting in the death of an innocent driver. An anonymous caller has given all sorts of details, including a motive, descriptions of the gunman, and more besides. That woman wasn't a hoaxer. Please, call back and tell us more. There's a big reward. An even more bizarre attack. Andy Sinclair had sulphuric acid thrown at him by a man in an orange wig and tam o' shanter.
Whoever threw acid on Andy Sinclair's face must be caught. They truly must be caught. It's a horrendous crime. If we don't catch them, there's every risk they may do it again.
We needed to eliminate a stranger who appeared afterwards to help. He rang himself and is entirely innocent. So who was the man with the acid? In the last 18 months, there have been 45 thefts from homes of elderly people in Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria.
Couldn't believe my eyes. It'd been into practically everything.
Nobody's been caught, but over 200 viewers rang to offer money to the victims. Most people are generous. But who's the thief? 0500 600 600.
This is Marjorie Wallace. The name may be familiar to you because she's one of the country's greatest campaigners on behalf of the mentally ill. But on a Sunday afternoon 3 weeks ago, she was attacked and robbed in Bicester, not far from Oxford. Marjorie had been to Tesco's, and while her partner waited with the shopping, she went to get the car. Parked next to hers was a blue, old-style Peugeot 305. As she went between the cars, a fist shot out and hit her in the face. Her bag was snatched, and she would have fallen, but the Peugeot then rammed into her, trapping her legs between the cars. The two men in the Peugeot then sped off, taking a roundabout the wrong way. Marjorie, it sounds absolutely terrifying. We all go to the supermarket. You don't expect something like this to happen, do you?
Well, no, I mean, as a journalist and as a head of a charity like Sane, I've always had a lot of knocks and I'm always a little bit wary, but I didn't expect at all anything to happen that day, and I walked over to the car and I looked, there were two people in it, and I thought they were going to ask directions, and then suddenly this fist comes out and pushes me against my car, and I'm sort of knocked, my handbag's taken, and then I'm just sort of pulling myself together and sort of questioning, and they reverse, and then suddenly the steering wheel turns and they look at me and they ram into me, and I think it was a woman, could have been a woman and a man, and I saw them laughing, and it was the laughter that was so
Because they didn't care, did they?
it. They didn't seem to care at all. I mean, it went through my head, quite a lot of things went through my head. Firstly, that I was glad it was me and not somebody more frail or more older or somebody who might have had a heart attack. And then I was very, I then actually sort of thought, well, this is it, you know, I'm finally being assassinated. And I thought, well, this should have been something more grand, you know, sort of Tosca ending. And here was Tesco's car park. It doesn't happen on a Sunday afternoon,
It's not how you expected to meet your maker.
It wasn't, not on the ground there.
Thankfully you haven't, and you're here to tell the tale. Carl, how can viewers help with this case?
I would ask for anyone with information about the blue Peugeot estate car, registration number E598UCL. Anyone with information at all about that car to come forward, and anyone that was at the Tesco store at Bicester on Sunday the 2nd of September this year.
So it could have been two men, possibly a woman and a man. We're really not that sure. And there was a similar incident in Birmingham, wasn't there?
That's right. About a week previously, the blue Peugeot car with the same registration number was involved in a similar incident, a handbag snatch at a Sainsbury's store in Birmingham, yes.
Now, have you been back to supermarket, Marjorie, since then?
Yes, I was visiting our research centre, and after I let out of casualty, the next day I decided to go back and with a friend, and I went and shopped there, and I went to the very spot it happened. I was very glad I did that because...
Did you made yourself do that?
I made myself. I faced up to it. I was hugely relieved that I survived, and I also felt just terribly sad that people could be so careless and callous about human life. And so, in a way, I sort of came to terms with it, and I think that's a very good thing to do.
Oh, thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in tonight, Marjorie. Remember, those two men had already snatched Marjorie's bag when they rammed her with the car. It was completely gratuitous. Call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600, or the incident room, that's on 01295 754 550. And if you've been a victim of crime and you'd like to talk to someone in confidence, you can call the victim support line. That's 0845 30 30 900.
Arson is one of the most deadly of crimes. In fact, it claims about 100 lives a year. And in North London, out of madness or religious bigotry, we don't know, there's an offender who must be caught before she strikes again. Stamford Hill has long been home to many Orthodox Jews. Since early June, there have been 9 arson attacks, all so far failing to take hold. But if it goes on, someone's likely to be killed. This woman is of particular interest. Here she is outside the scene of the first attack just before the fire was lit. The target house is on the right. Who is she?
The third attack was at 3:15, was when the smoke alarm went off. I woke up. At first I didn't get what it is. I turned around and my wife said it's the smoke alarm. That's when we jumped up and I opened up the door. And I ran out. I just saw by the steps the smoke coming up and the smell. The Met was alight. There was smoky upstairs here as well, and the children had been dragged out, all screaming and crying.
Every single night we live with fear of what the night is going to bring. The children, when they go to bed, ask every single night, now do you think somebody's going to come again? And they're even afraid actually of their school bells. When the school bell rings, it reminds them of the fire alarm.
No one knows who will be the next house, that it's been picked up quite randomly. I'm up usually till at least 2:30. Keep looking out the windows, running backwards, forwards. We keep looking at the watch at night and we're basically waiting for the hours for it to get light already. I know that you've gone through the night successfully.
I have absolutely no idea why somebody would be trying to target us. We don't know if this can happen again. We just don't know what our future brings.
In one case, the arsonist was followed. She was black, probably late 30s and overweight. This could be her. Or at any rate, she needs to be eliminated from the inquiry. So call and tell us who she is. The local number's 020 7275 3673. Or just call straight to the studio at 0500 600 600.
Coming up, who do you know who was in Doncaster on the day of the St Leger race last year? We'll tell you why it's so important.
And recognise any of this lot? We'll tell you why they're wanted. Aggravated burglary, where people are attacked in their own homes, is one of the most unpleasant crimes. This one was in Banstead in Surrey in February.
I think at first it's almost disbelief. You can't believe that this is happening, and my main concern was for Daisy because she was really frightened. Every night, play it over like a videotape in my mind. What went on, if I'd done the right thing, maybe what else you could have done, and pretty nervous about being in the house on my own. It was just before 12. We'd done a little bit of shopping, come back. She was sitting down having her lunch.
So how was school?
Okay. I wasn't expecting, anybody to come visiting, so I just presumed it was probably someone delivering a parcel.
Okay, Daisy, wait me a minute.
Mummy.
Come on.
Where's the gold? Where's the gold?
What? Daisy? It's upstairs. Daisy!
Oi! Come back here! Come here! Come here!
Just don't know how to say
Upstairs! Go on!
I think you do go into automatic pilot. You just do what they say because there's no other option really with two men and you've got your young child with you. She was so terrified. And I, at the same time, was feeling pretty sick, and very, very nervous, wondering what really that was going to happen.
The family did have jewellery, much of it distinctive, none of it insured. But how did the intruders know?
Right, sit on the bed.
Please, don't hurt us.
Get us your watch. Come on, get us your watch.
Yeah, there was lots of sentimental things. There were things from when I was a little girl. There was the children's christening presents, crosses and things like that. Lovely memories, really.
Come on, get it off! Come on, get it off! That's it, Tom, come on, that's it! Right, this way. Right, get in there. Stay in there.
How can someone do that, with a little girl in the house? It's awful. Must have been so frightening for her.
The car was probably a Vauxhall Astra. Patricia's husband Keith is as distraught as she is. He owns a gym in Collier's Wood in South London. He's got that nagging feeling that someone he knows had told the robbers all about him. The couple are now thinking of moving house. But of course the worst trauma is to Daisy, who's only 5.
Well, if the doorbell goes, she hides under the kitchen table. I've changed the sound, so that sounds different. If she's indoors and somebody might walk past the patio window, she's very sort of worried. The first time it happened, she was screaming and shouting and running away. So it's affected her badly.
Del, let's hope other criminals will shop these guys for, doing this to a woman and a little kid like that. Tell us about the jewellery that was stolen. Some of it quite distinctive.
There are 3 items we've singled out, which are very distinctive. There's a white gold 18-carat ring.
That's the one on the middle finger there?
That's right, Nick, yes. It's very distinctive. It's got 4 diamonds with 4 carats. There's also a Pharaohan ring.
A Pharaohan ring? What's that?
It's a ring made by Cartier. It's a round ring which has panthers around the outside in gold.
Then, not this watch, but a lady's watch very similar. This is a Rolex watch. Tell us what's distinctive about the one that was stolen. It had something on the bezel or something quite distinctive.
It had diamonds placed around the outside, which in itself is quite rare.
So this gold centre, what they call the champagne centre, and diamond bezels. If people have got that, they're going to be worried about being done for receiving stolen property.
They may have bought it in all innocence. What we do, we would like to speak to them and eliminate them from inquiry.
And these are mock-ups of the coats that they were using, donkey jackets. Post office. Now, I don't think post office actually has jackets like that, certainly not anymore.
It could have been made up specially for the incident, or it could be from a private company.
But they'd normally say mailroom or something like that. So if somebody knows where these were made, that would help.
That's right.
Or were they just made up for them? There's a reward. I mean, the family weren't insured for this. They've lost, nearly a huge proportion of anything they ever owned. But they're so anxious about it, so angry about it, they put up quite a substantial reward.
Well, they have. They've actually put up £10,000 of their own money for a conviction in this case.
You can see how strongly they feel about this. They've lost all this. They're still prepared to put savings together for a £10,000 reward. None of this stuff was insured. And a terrible thing to put that little kid through. Call the incident room, please. Call us or the incident room directly. 01737 236 205.
Now take a look at these 4, all wanted in connection with violent crimes. First, Al-Haji Tull. A woman was raped at gunpoint at her home in London, and he may be able to take the investigation further. Gordon Johnston's a robber, and he's been on the run from prison since July. We need to get him back, as we're very worried that he may offend again. 10 years ago, Malcolm McQuillan failed to turn up at court to answer charges of indecency against children, but we're still on his trail. Now, he might have gone to Mexico at the time, but do you know if he's back? And this is Merrick Pert. He also failed to turn up for his trial on a charge of raping a 15-year-old girl. 0500 600 600.
And then there's these 4. Caroline Karanja was arrested in Surrey for fraud, but later skipped bail. Now, she may be in the East Ham area of London. Fred Ajudua is also wanted for fraud deception on a grand scale. He featured in the BBC programme McIntyre Undercover, and he's believed to be part of a larger gang that we're after. John Bond, he's suspected of preying on vulnerable women. He prides himself on his long, flowing hair and sometimes wears it tied back in a ponytail. And he can call himself Chris Bates or Chris Rogers. And Peter Wilson, he pleaded guilty to various fraud offences but didn't turn up for sentencing in Cardiff. Now, he's still got connections in Pontypool, and he's known for being a bit of a talker.
0500 600 600, help catch those 8 people. And here are 2 you helped catch earlier.
Peter Field managed to swindle a pensioner out of thousands by forging his passport and gaining access to his bank account. He was caught on camera in a London bank, and 2 Crimewatch viewers named him. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Ben Bono spent years stalking an ex-girlfriend.
I've spent almost the majority of my life being hunted by this person who is completely relentless in their pursuit of me.
Callers to Crimewatch said he was in the Malvern area, and police arrested him there. He's been convicted of harassment and is awaiting sentence.
Let me just remind you about the terrible attack on a number 36 bus in London a couple of weeks ago at Vauxhall Bridge. A guy who tried to pacify 5 yobs who were throwing things around the bus had one of his eyes gouged out, and we heard tonight he's got serious damage to the other eye as well. It's absolutely tragic. But we've had witnesses really calling in, a lot of them tonight, including somebody who was driving a bus the opposite direction, was so concerned that he stopped to offer the bus driver help, and tragically he was told help wasn't wanted. But we've also got lots of other people, including a very, very good, what the officer who took this call describes as a very, very good witness indeed.
And we've had a lot of calls on the Ravenscourt Park rape. If you remember, this was the rape back in August. It was around Ravenscourt Park Tube in West London, and the man may have had a mental illness. We're not entirely sure. We've got someone who thinks they've seen him in the last hour, and the police are onto that now. We've had several names and addresses given. If you remember, he was in his 40s. He had a Southern Irish accent. He had a grey jacket with a dark stripe around here on it. He had a sort of shambling gait. Someone's rung in and said that may be linked to a particular kind of medication that maybe he's on. As I said, he may have a mental illness, he may not, we're not sure, but that is a strong clue.
The St Leger race, do you know it, in Doncaster? It was run last week. But were you at the St Leger or anywhere in Doncaster a year ago?
I was just walking for about a minute. I have to walk up Don Street to where there's a subway and then walk it along Wheatley Hall Road to the end of St George's Garage. It's not that far, it's not far at all. As I've got to the Texaco Gasworks, there was a white Hyundai car. I don't know if it was a Lantra or an Accent.
You got a light, love?
He then grabbed her and pulled her into the car.
Shut up and don't say no.
I'd say it was a local accent. It wasn't out of Yorkshire. It sounded like how I talk. He looked young, 20 to 25.
He wore a distinctive orange top with a logo that may have said Rockport.
There's a dirt track that goes all the way around this waste area, and so he just kept it on this dirt track, straight down to the bottom, and parked it literally next to the canal, facing back up. I didn't know what his intentions were, so I thought as long as I go along with what he's wanting, he won't turn violent, hopefully.
He raped her and then left her there, driving back up the track towards Wheatley Hall Road. This was last September. Who had access to a white Hyundai hatchback and who fits the description?
My mum stayed with me. She's seen me through this a lot. The only thing she's asked me is not to go into detail with her. But her little girl, she didn't want to know what her little girl went through, so I haven't.
We've got DNA, so if you've got any doubts, we can easily put your mind at rest. If you're a mum, if you're a girlfriend, whatever, if you have any suspicions at all, please call in. We can rule those suspicions out. 0500 600 600 or 01 302 385 351.
A tragedy 3 months ago near Swindon. A young man called Paul Ellison had been drinking at a wedding and was run over. The driver would have felt an impact but might not know he or she had actually killed someone.
He's always wanted to be a pilot and in the RAF from the age of 6. There wasn't anything else. He went in the ATC and he was in there until they more or less had to throw him out because he was too old, but he did leave there being warrant officer.
He used to enjoy life. He used to like dancing and drinking and having a good time when he went out, basically.
On the last Saturday in June, Paul spent the evening at a friend's wedding reception at the Supermarine Social Club in South Marston. He'd arranged to stay at a friend's in Swindon, 3 miles away. Unable to get a taxi, he left just after midnight and started walking down the A361.
He had actually asked me if I'd take him to this reception on the Saturday night, and I told him that I couldn't because we were going to see my mum, but I'd probably be back in time for picking him up. And he said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll sort something out."
Paul had been drinking steadily and at one point was seen lying down in the road. The route's well lit and drivers slowed down when they saw him close to Vickers roundabout. But one wasn't so careful. A dark, family-sized car drove over him, killing him instantly.
Everybody's got a mobile phone. Nearly everybody these days. And especially if you're travelling at night, a lot of people carry mobile phones. So they could have rang.
The driver may not have realised what he'd hit, but he would have felt an impact. The road is near the main A419 that joins the M4 and M5. A huge Honda UK car plant is nearby.
An awful lot of people turned out at his funeral. I knew Paul was popular, but didn't quite realise just how popular he was. It's one of the things that I think of. I just hope he realised just how popular he was.
As you heard there, the driver may not have known that he or she had actually hit a person. If that was you, or you know anything, call us here or the incident room on 01793 891 321. And let me just make an appeal on another case, the Vauxhall Bridge bus attack, terrible attack where a man actually had his eye gouged out. Someone has rung in who thinks he may know one of the boys. He said he'd ring back tomorrow. The police really want to speak to you. Could you ring in again? The number to call, the incident room number, is 0208 649 2484. I know you said you'd call back tomorrow. Police really want to talk to you tonight, so please call in and let us know what you know.
Now we're going to give you another chance to have a look at that amazing footage of the burglars who actually took a baby with them whilst trying to, in a pushchair in a house. At least they stopped to feed the child, which is something. But 4 different names have been suggested, but we still need more. Can you link some names with that baby? And have another look, if you can, at these 4 men, all wanted in connection with violent crimes all over the country. If you know who any of them are, please give us a call. And remember that all the incident room numbers are on CFAX page 621. Jeremy.
Earlier I showed you some footage of a terrifying ordeal for a garage cashier in Penge. Now we've had one call on that. It might be the call, but we've only had one. So if you recognise either of these 2, then I've got officers from London who are keen to hear from you. And let's do a recap on the 4 faces, all wanted for various deceptions. Where are they? I've got officers here from Surrey, London and Pontypool, all waiting for your call. And you can email us at cwuk@bbc.co.uk.
We'll be back at 11:35 to tell you what's been going on, and maybe we'll have arrests by then.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for helping to cut crime. Above all, don't have nightmares. Sleep well. Good night.
Good night.